Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Monkey Wrench. I'm Kelly, the monkey with the wrench. Today, we're working on a machine that used to be mine. This is still 2022, although it's holiday time, end of the year. And I used this particular Honda myself to cut grass this year. When I had a backyard I couldn't get a machine into before I had my zeros, all that fun stuff. So this was a machine that I took care of well, and I decided before the hurricane that I was getting rid of all the things that have been just sitting around that I don't need, that are a liability, that should be money in the bank instead of machines sitting around. So I sold this. Anyway, I got a text last night from the guy I sold it to, who said, hey, I used it once and now there's a problem with it. It won't self-propel or something. And he showed up this morning because, you know, I warranty what I sell. And he says, oh, and by the way, the pull cord is stuck. Now that's a new pull cord. I put that on because the old one was frayed, so I put a new one on before I sold it. And somehow he's got it jammed, you know, so it won't even recoil. And apparently there's something wrong with the drive system, the self-propelled system. So I just wanted to say in the beginning that if you're selling stuff, if you're, you know, buying to fix and sell, whatever the case may be, no matter who you're dealing with, some people just find a way to mess stuff up. I go through extensive testing before selling my equipment. I start them, cold start them several times a day, let them run, you know, check everything, go through everything. And, you know, if there's something that's kind of on the fence and, you know, kind of have to be gentle with it, I tell the people and I sell it a little bit cheaper. So I have no idea how this thing started on the first pull every single time. So what he was doing wrong to have to pull this cable maybe several times and so hard that he broke the pull cord, I don't know. We're gonna figure that out. I'm gonna pop that off real quick and we're gonna take a look at it and we're gonna see what's wrong with this thing. All right, now I have had situations where as soon as I release this thing, especially on these Hondas, it will automatically recoil. It's just kind of stuck. So just taking out these 3 bolts, and just see. Okay, it pulled the cable out of here, and that's why it's in there. I don't know if you can see that, but the cable is up there and it's kind of stuck because we both pulled on it a few times. He pulled it so hard that he ripped it right out of there, right out of the recoil. So what I'm gonna do is back this up, feed it through, put a larger knot on there so it can't pull through again, and that should fix the problem. On an upper note, I just want to say this is day 3 without a cigarette. That's not true. I have 3 or 4 cigarettes a day as opposed to the 2 packs a day I was smoking. I'm chewing the gum, and it gets me 2 to 3 hours without a need for a cigarette. I don't even want one. And then mentally it kicks in and goes, I should have one. Not a physical need, but it's the mental part that I'm trying to break. So after 2 or 3 hours, I will have a cigarette, and then I'll pop another piece of gum, 2 or 3 hours. And I'm working on doing 2 pieces of gum in a row, so I get 4 to 6 hours, and then a cigarette, so that I'm still not, you know how when you go on a diet and then you splurge, I'm trying to make a permanent change and put my mind to it without taking away completely what's going on. So yesterday I had 5 cigarettes in an 18-hour period as opposed to 40. So I'd say the gum is so far successful. What I did was I pulled this back through. I don't know if you can see that. And I put a washer there that was larger than the hole that the line ripped through. And then I put a knot back on that side. So we have our pull cord back. And he must have yanked on that pretty hard to make that happen. But that's okay. I have customers that have brought me their machines and they say, oh, I can't get it to start. And I say, the first thing I always do is say, show me. Unless a pull cord's broken, I say, go ahead and start it for me. Show me how you start it. And they will pull such a weak pull that they can't even spin the machine. And then I go, oh, okay, I see the problem. And I grab it and I give it a good pull and it starts on the first pull because they're not pulling hard enough. And then obviously in some cases we get a guy that just pulls too hard. And there's not much that you can do about that. So let me go ahead now and see if this thing will start, because his complaint was not that it wouldn't run. His complaint was the pull cord and something to do with the drive system. So the fuel is on. It's got fuel in it. This has a choke on the side. Well, there's definitely nothing when I pull that cable. So something happened down there. It's going to be a cable issue. Let me get this thing turned up on its side. See how the cable come through. This one, I have to take the entire front end off of this style. I hate these style machines. But let me get it up on its side, show you how to take it apart, and we'll see what's going on with the drive cable. Now on this particular style of Troy Bilt, there are no screws or bolts or anything. Sorry, I can't see nothing in the screen. There are no screws of any kind on the top side of all this plastic. And if you flip it over, that's where we're going to find all the bolts, because this top piece here sandwiches the deck and comes together with the whole bottom end, and that's what holds this thing on the front. So if you're looking and you're going, maybe there's some bolts up under there, or I'm not sure, blah blah blah, you cannot get to anything from the top side. You must flip it up on its side. Remember to keep the carburetor on the top when you flip it. And where you're going to find is there's bolts all up in here, and I think there's 8 maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then also across the front here there's 1, and usually they're covered by grass. There's at least 2 bolts across the front. See if I can get the grass off so I can show you. And I thought that there were 3. There are 3. Okay, there are 3. And I only know that from working on these for so long. These are my least favorite machines. I hate Hondas, you know that. And I hate this form of drive system. But you can't pick your customers, right? So, let's see if I can get in there and show you. I don't know that you'll be able to see. See, there's 1, 2, 3. They're way up inside. 4, 5. And I thought there were more up there, but then up here underneath of the deck, we got 1 here, 1 here, 1 in the center. There's 3. 1, 2, 3. They have to come off. Then the whole fucking thing comes off. And all because this is your drive system right here. When I pull that cable, that's supposed to pull like that and engage. And I don't know what has happened. I'm guessing a cable broke or something, because they don't just come off. So I'm going to go ahead and take out those 9, 10 bolts. Pull that front apart and show you what it looks like. Okay, hopefully you can see better now. There were 2 more that I forgot about. They were staring me in the face. So here we have 1, 2, 3 bolts. 1, 2, 3. And I pulled them about halfway out so you'd be able to see them. Then there's 1 here and 1 here, and they go straight up into the body. And then we have 1 here, 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 and here. So that's 5, 7, 10 bolts. That's more like it. And they're 2 different sizes. These 5 bolts are 1/2 inch, and these are 10 or 3/8, I believe. Since everything's loose, I can go ahead and pull these out. Let me get a magnet. So if you just remember that all of the 1/2 inch heads go on this side, and then the 10s or 3/8 go up through the plastic. You won't put them in the wrong place. And that's what we're trying not to do. And you can always set them on your bench in such a way that you won't forget. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as you can see, I've moved outside, because since the hurricane came through and I packed up what I could in the shop, I still have not put everything back, and the shop is still a mess. So I decided to work out here. Now these aren't bolts like you'd standard see. These are those low thread count, thick thread for plastic. Because after all, that's what it's going into. And they look like that. And those are close to the same, but clearly different. And as you're pulling them out, match them up to see if there are any different lengths. But they all look like they're the same length. The 1/2 inch ones, and the number 10s, or the 10 millimeter, looks like they're all the same as well. So the reason for doing all of that work, see if I can bring you over here, was so that I could get this section off. And it's a pain. It's a pain to get on and a pain to get off, because the wheels, there's one adjustment for both wheels. So you got the whole pinion section. And what I'm trying to do, did I miss a bolt? Oh, I missed a bolt. Oh, I hate these machines. I believe I have to take the wheel off to get to a bolt that comes in from the side of this stupid thing. But what I'm trying to figure out right now, the pulley is on this side where the cable goes. So I'm going to pause you for a second and take a look and see if I'm going to bother. As much as I love my job, and I do, it still gets frustrating when you work with some piece of crap that was designed by some corporation somewhere so they could make new patents and sell new machines. In order to get the rest of that apart, and you see the whole drive system here is off, there's still 2 bolts, one here and one here, to take that top plastic the rest of the way off. Now, I don't need to do that because, see if I can show you, I found our culprit. Can you see in there? You see that pulley? And you see how the belt is off the pulley? So in this case, all I need to do is put that pulley back on, or put that belt back on that pulley. And then there's an adjustment up there on the handle where I can tighten that down and make sure that doesn't come off again. These Troy Bilts have a terrible, terrible design flaw on top of all the ones you've already seen, taking the whole thing apart just to get to that. I did not have to take this bolt, or those 3 inside ones out. I should have just taken off the plastic. So I'm going to go ahead and put those back on. And again, I haven't worked on these in a year or two, this particular model, and I work on thousands every year. It's just a belt. So let me put those back on, and I'll show you the design flaw I was talking about when I get that top card off. Okay, I went ahead and put in these 5 bolts. Bing, bang, bang, bing, bang. And I took out these 2 bolts, which were back to the 10 millimeters. So if you're doing this job, you're only going to need the 10 mil. Now I can take this top piece off, get it out of the way, and show you what it looks like inside. Now remember, when you go to put it back together, you have your gears here that go into the little gear part on the plastic on both sides. That has to set properly if you want. In fact, I'll do it. I'm going to get a piece of wood, prop that up so it all sits in the right spot. Now the idea of doing this is, when you pull something apart, you want to kind of keep it in the best place you can where it won't just kind of fall out on the ground. And you'll see that down here under this gear are plastic gears, basically plastic that, I don't know, I'm having a brain fart, you know me, I do that. This sandwiches that gear and stops it from spinning. So when you put it back together, you just want to make sure that that's down in that hole, so that when you put that back together and it sandwiches it, it doesn't allow it to spin. Now, the problem that these machines have, the flaw, if I can get out of the way of the sun. Again, I'm quitting smoking. It's wonderful, it's easy, but I'm still a little touchy. This arm right here is what moves when I pull the handle up there. So let me see if I can show you what I mean. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the handle now. And you see how it just pulls that so that it goes up and down? The problem is, we've got a metal pulley here and a plastic arm. And this plastic arm from time to time busts right here or busts right here. And then you have to replace the entire axle, which is $150 for the part. You can't find them used. I've tried. I've even gone so far on one of these machines, this identical machine, as I made an arm out of steel. I fabricated it, unbolted this, took this plastic arm out. I had to modify it because the part that goes down inside of the gearbox here needed to remain. And then I welded steel to make a new arm to make this stupid thing work on a different machine. And that's what I was worried about on this one. But in this case, we just have a belt that's come off. So I'm just going to put the belt back on. Okay, now the belt's back on. These are our 2 guides. I think this is a single guide right here. That's in place. Our cable's in place. It gets locked in here, clips onto there. Our belt is now back in place. So now I can go ahead and put this all back together and take it all apart just to find that issue. Let me go ahead and put it back together, and then I'll show you how to adjust it so it's a little bit tighter. All right, now I have it up on blocks. Hopefully it's high enough that the wheels can hang. Our gears are back in their gear spots on the bottom. I'm gonna feed this through. Now on this particular machine, the wheel adjustment lever, you're gonna have to play with that as you put this thing down, because it's gonna be in the way. But once you get it out of the way, you should be able to wiggle and waddle that thing into place. Then I lock the wheel adjustment back into a position where it actually holds one side. And what I'm going to attempt to do is flip this thing up without it coming apart, which sometimes it does. Making sure that we're together and get a bolt in there. Because no matter what you do, this thing is just a pain in the ass. It's a crap design, and there's nothing you could do except work with what these dumbasses gave you. So do the best you can to get whatever bolt you can in there. Keep your magnet handy. My sockets are not magnetized, so there isn't a whole lot I can do, but keep trying over and over. And if you watch my channel, you know that I don't magic of TV it. If it takes me 5 tries to get a single freaking bolt in there, you're gonna watch it, or you can fast forward or go to a different channel. Because this is reality. You want to know how to work on your machines, how easy or how hard it is, then you watch me. I try to talk about as much as I possibly can, and I try to show you the reality that is working on small machines. Once you get 2 of them in there, you're fine. You can move this thing any damn way you want. I used the magnet to get the tip in the hole. Now I've got 2 in. Now this is plastic, so you don't have to crank them down or you'll strip it out. So what I'm going to do now is stand it back up and make sure that we're in the right position, that everything looks fine, and that it moves correctly. So now that I know, I'm going to go ahead and put the other bunch of screws in, and I'll show you what happened. Now, once you get all your screws back in, double check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I had already put these other 5 back in. What I'm going to do now, stand it back up, and I am going to adjust the wheel just to make sure that everything's back in the proper place and that it lifts everything up correctly. I'm going to double check that everything's tight. On some models there are 2 bolts that go behind the wheel down in the back side, and this one doesn't seem to have them, but you may be finding bolts there too. So when you get into it and you're talking about 17 bolts to take some plastic off, to get to a belt that may have popped off. It gets a little frustrating. But now that that's all back together, let me get this thing down, take it out front, and we'll see if it's back to work. And I'll show you how to adjust that drive belt. Okay, before I go any further, these belts get old and worn out. That's just the way it works. And you never know when they're going to be worn out until one pops off. So the fact that I use this thing every week, sometimes for 2 or 3 hours if I had to do 2 or 3 lawns, and never had an issue with the drive system, and this guy took it home and it popped off during the first use or after the first use when he went to use it a second time. He was clearly outside after the hurricane, you know, cutting down. There was all kinds of stuff in the yard. I used my zero turn to clean up mine, but that's probably what happened. Also, there is an adjustment on these, and if you look right here on the handle, and I can't see the screen because it's too bright, but right here is this adjustment, okay, and it spins, and you may not be able to see it, but there is an arrow that's pointing this direction and it says tighten. So if you just spin that, what you'll find is that the cable right here gets pushed out. I'm gonna loosen it and see if you can see that. Maybe not. That as I loosen it, this cable will push its way back in, and as I tighten it, the cable will be pushed out. Basically, you're just lengthening the cable. And when you do that and then you pull the handle, now the handle's kind of loose. I'm gonna tighten it just a little bit more and get that handle to be fairly tight. And what that does is it allows less movement down there, because this is a cable-based system. So when I tighten it all the way, it'll allow for less movement. Now that's much tighter, and it'll allow for less movement up there, which will give it less of a chance for that belt to pop off. Now you saw the belt keepers that were around the pulley, so it shouldn't pop off unless you're abusing this machine. And you know, I have a few piles here of leaves and branches and whatnot, but I used my zero turn and I cut the grass, and what that did was mulch all the leaves and the leaf debris that came down during the hurricane, and chopped up all the small branches and whatnot. He may have attempted to do that with this, but now we're just going to fire this thing up now that we put our belt back on, and make sure that our wheels are working. And it may take a minute because I had it up on its side for, you know, a long time. So I got the choke on, turn the fuel back on. What I'm going to do is start it, raise up the front, and pull the lever and make sure the wheels are turning as they should be. And now when I pull that handle to make those drive wheels work, I barely have to pull it at all before the wheels engage. Before, I was having to pull it almost all the way to get the wheels to engage. Now when I pull it, I only pull it that far and the wheels already begin to engage. So tightening it can give you more life on your belt. That belt is in decent condition. You know, obviously it's old, and it's stretched and a little bit worn, and that's what happens when it's spinning around a steel pulley, you know, a few thousand times per minute. But it's still in good shape. There's no chunks out of it, there's no worn spots, there's no cracking going on. So by tightening that adjustment on the handle, I can give that belt probably another season before it needs to be changed. And they're only about 15 bucks maybe for those belts. 10, or I think the last time I bought one was like 12 bucks or something. But as you can see, you have to take the whole front end apart just to get to it. It makes a pain in the butt. And if you take this thing to somebody to have it repaired, it's a $100 bill if you have to pay somebody to do it. And unfortunately, on this machine, if I had not sold this and warrantied what I sold, he would have had to pay me $100 bucks to have this problem fixed. So there's our solution for this particular machine. We know why. I mean, he just pulled the crap out of that handle and pulled the pull rope right through the mech. So by putting a washer in there and widening our footprint, putting a nut back in it, he won't pull it through again because it's a metal washer. And now our drive belt is back on. It's adjusted so that it's tighter, so he should not have any more issues. And you can see it starts right up on the first pull, even after it's been on its side for a while. So there should be no more issues with this. He'll come back this afternoon, pick this up, take it home. He shouldn't have any more problems. But again, I warranty everything I sell. So there it is. Thanks for stopping by. I hope that I wasn't in too bad of a mood. Remember, I'm quitting smoking, day 3. So I'm a little testy. Thankfully, I live by myself, so I don't have to be around a girlfriend or kids or anything like that, which I miss, but at least this is the perfect time to quit smoking. And hopefully it continues to go well. I am looking into doing some merch. I am getting 150 to 200 views steady on every video, so it might be time to maybe make a t-shirt, maybe make a hat. If you have any ideas, leave it down in the comments of what you might like to see. A coffee mug. I'm gonna try and keep the prices as low as possible and just get something. I really want to get a t-shirt and a hat for when I'm making my videos. I know a few of my friends are interested. And the extra income will help, especially in the winter time. As we transition into boats throughout the winter, the videos should keep coming on schedule twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8 a.m. Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button. It's somewhere between my chin and my balls. And we'll see you soon.